That night at the company gala, Mom slipped out as I presented her with the humanitarian award, and her hand struck my cheek under the crystal chandeliers. My father leaned in, his whisper sharp enough to cut through the applause. "You deserved that one." I held my smile for the press, knowing the security dome camera had the perfect angle. By morning, I wouldn't be the quiet daughter. I'd be the one writing the agenda for the emergency shareholders meeting. My name is Mara Keene. At 32, I am the Director of Controls and Ethics for Norval Provision Company. It is a title that sounds both important and impossibly dull, which is exactly the point. My department is the company's structural conscience, the place where the anonymous hotline rings and digital trails are meticulously untangled. I am a cartographer of corporate secrets, and my job is to know precisely where all the bodies are buried, because I am the one who audits the shovels. The Norval Provision Company's annual charity gala is the crown jewel of the social season in Grayford, a town that prides itself on quiet money and loud philanthropy. It's held at the Rivermark Hotel, a century-old monolith of marble and dark wood, whose grand ballroom has witnessed generations of the town's elite congratulate themselves for their generosity. Tonight, the air is thick with the scent of lilies and expensive perfume, a suffocating combination. Ice sculptures of the Norval logo, a stylized sheaf of wheat, weep slowly under the heat of the crystal chandeliers. The sound is a carefully orchestrated symphony of clinking glasses, hushed negotiations disguised as pleasantries, and the drone of a string quartet playing sanitized versions of pop songs. At the center of this gilded universe is my father, Dean Keene. He is the CEO, a man sculpted from charisma and tailored suits. To the world, he is the benevolent patriarch of Norval, a company that puts family first, a motto emblazoned on every piece of corporate literature. His silver hair catches the light as he moves through the crowd, his handshake firm, his smile a well-rehearsed instrument of power. He is the living embodiment of the Norval brand, dependable, traditional, and flawlessly presented. On his arm, a perfect accessory, is my stepmother, Brielle Voss. 18 months after marrying my father, she was appointed Chief People Officer. Brielle is a vision of modern corporate femininity. Her dress is a column of dark silk. Her jewelry is understated, but costs more than my car. And her posture is impeccable. She navigates the room with a predator's grace, her smile a bright, sharp thing she bestows upon those who matter and withholds from those who don't. Together, they are the image of success, the aspirational Keene family, the face of Norval's unblemished reputation. And then there is me, the necessary, if slightly inconvenient, component of the family portrait. I am the daughter from the first marriage, the one who looks too much like her mother, the one whose job is to ask uncomfortable questions. The evening grinds on, a blur of auction items and self-congratulatory speeches. Finally, the main event, the MC, a local news anchor with a voice as smooth and artificial as processed cheese, steps to the podium. "And now," he booms, "to present the Norval Humanitarian of the Year Award to our very own Chief People Officer, Brielle Voss. Would the Keene family please join me on stage?" A spotlight finds us. My father places a proprietary hand on the small of Brielle's back, guiding her toward the stage. I follow a half step behind, the dutiful daughter. The applause is a physical wave, pushing against me. On stage, the heat from the lights is intense. I can see the individual faces in the front rows, all smiling, all watching. I am handed the award, a heavy gold-plated medal on a thick navy ribbon. It feels cold and dead in my hands. The teleprompter has my speech, a few sanitized lines about Brielle's commitment to employee wellness programs. I step up to her. She smells of Chanel No. 5 and victory. I raise the medal to place it over her head. The movement is automatic, practiced in a dozen other corporate ceremonies, but as I do, a ghost slips through my lips, a 2-decade-old reflex from a time when that title meant something else entirely, a word I haven't spoken to a woman standing in front of me since I was a child. Congratulations, Mom. It's quiet, barely a whisper, but in the small space between us, it's a gunshot. Her reaction is instantaneous. The smile on her face doesn't falter, but her eyes turn to chips of ice. Her hand, the one not holding a small, glittering clutch, comes up. It's not a wild, emotional swing. It is a short, precise, controlled strike. The crack of her palm against my cheek is sharp, and for a split second, it's louder than the string quartet. The flashbulbs of the press photographers pop, a series of silent explosions capturing the moment. Under the cover of the still thundering applause, her whisper is a sliver of glass in my ear. I am not your mother. I don't move. I don't breathe. The sting on my cheek begins to bloom. A sudden, radiating heat, before the shock can even settle. My father is there, stepping smoothly between us. He reaches for the microphone stand, adjusting it an infinitesimal inch, a seamless piece of stagecraft to mask the hitch in the proceedings. His body blocks the view of the audience as he leans in, his own whisper a chilling counterpoint to hers, the words a cold, hard confirmation. You deserved that one. Then he turns back to the crowd, his famous, reassuring smile clicking perfectly back into place as if nothing has happened. He takes the microphone. My wife, Brielle, he says, his voice resonating with manufactured warmth. A true humanitarian. My training kicks in. The years I've spent as an auditor, facing down belligerent executives and practiced liars, have taught me one thing. You never show them the wound. Emotion is a liability. Reaction is a concession. So, I do not raise a hand to my face. I do not let a single tear form. I hold my smile, a tight, professional rictus I've perfected for board meetings. I look straight ahead, past the blinding lights, past the sea of oblivious faces, and find the main camera bank for the event's live stream. I meet its unblinking lens. Then, I execute a small, deliberate movement. I tilt my head slightly to the left, angling my jaw up. It is a subtle, almost imperceptible shift, but it is calculated. It is designed to give the best possible view to the Axis P55544E dome camera, serial number ACCC 8ED7 4B 1F, mounted high on the gilded molding of the ballroom ceiling. I know its exact position and its resolution capabilities because I signed the purchase order for the hotel's security system upgrade last year as part of a vendor risk assessment. From its vantage point, it will capture a perfect, high-definition image of the 5 red fingerprints blossoming on my cheek. My clutch is a simple, elegant black leather rectangle, unassuming. Inside, nestled between my phone, a tube of muted red lipstick, and my company ID, is a single, tri-folded document. It is not a forgotten speech or a tissue for crocodile tears. It is a court-ordered data preservation notice, file stamped by a county judge at 4:51 p.m. the previous day. The language of the order is brutally specific, a legal net designed to catch everything. It mandates the immediate and indefinite preservation of all electronic communications and stored information within the Norval Human Resources Department. It also explicitly names all records, invoices, and communications pertaining to a third-party staffing vendor, a curiously opaque entity named Rook & Larch, LLC. Hours later, the gala is a fading memory of forced laughter and bad champagne. The heavy silk dress is a heap on my bedroom floor. I sit in the cool, sterile glow of my home office monitor. The silence of the apartment a welcome antidote to the noise of the evening. My fingers, steady and sure, move across the keyboard. I log into the company's secure human resource information system. My credentials grant me administrative access. I navigate to the incident reporting module. New report. Subject: workplace violence. Date of incident: October 11, 2024. Location of incident: Rivermark Hotel Grand Ballroom. Parties involved: Brielle Voss, Chief People Officer; Mara Keene, Director, Controls and Ethics. In the free text description field, I type with clinical detachment: During a company-sanctioned event, a corporate officer, Brielle Voss, initiated unwarranted and hostile physical contact with a subordinate employee. The action constitutes a Level 3 violation of Norval's Workplace Conduct and Safety Policy 7.4a. I attach 2 files to the report. The first is a formal request to the Rivermark Hotel's security chief for the unedited footage from Camera 7, time-stamped from 9:15 p.m. to 9:25 p.m. The second is a copy of the court order. Then, I navigate to the system-wide administration panel. I find the command for initiating a legal hold. A pop-up box appears, demanding confirmation. This action is irreversible and will freeze all deletion protocols for the selected datasets. Do you wish to proceed? My cheek still hums with a faint, residual sting. I click yes. Across the Norval servers, a silent, irrevocable command is executed. The digital crime scene is now sealed. The Keens are a Grayford institution, our family motto, plastered on the Norval annual report and carved into the cornerstone of our headquarters, is family first. It's a brilliant piece of branding, evoking images of Thanksgiving dinners and unwavering support. But like most corporate slogans, it's a lie, the real, unspoken motto, the one I learned long before I learned to parse a balance sheet, is protect the brand, bury the emotion. Last night was a masterclass in this philosophy. Brielle's slap wasn't a breach of our family code. It was a violent enforcement of it. I had broken protocol. I had allowed a private sentiment, a ghost of genuine, messy feeling, to escape in a public forum. The sting on my cheek wasn't punishment for disrespecting her. It was punishment for endangering the brand. My father's hissed, "You deserved that one," was simply his managerial concurrence. I had failed a quality control check, and he was signing off on the corrective action. This has always been the way. When I was 12, a year after my mother died, my father found me in my room. I was holding her picture, a silver-framed photo from a sailing trip. Her face bright and wind-chapped. I had traced the glass and whispered, "Mom." He didn't yell. He didn't hit me. His method was always colder, cleaner. He simply took the frame from my hands. "Mara," he'd said, his voice quiet, reasonable. "We've discussed this. This fixation is unhealthy. It is disrespectful to the new family we are building." He called it morbid sentimentality. The photo vanished that afternoon. Put in storage, for my own good. The lesson was clear. Grief was a personal failing, a messy variable that complicated the clean narrative of our new, blended family, the brand. I found that photo 6 years later, buried in a box of old tax returns in the attic. Today, it sits in the bottom left drawer of my desk at Norval. Locked. Not for sentiment, but as a reminder of the primary data point. It is the original file, the one that proves the entire system is built on a deliberately corrupted foundation. Brielle entered this system with the seamless efficiency of a corporate integration. She arrived not as a person, but as a project plan. She proudly told my father, taken a modern stepmothering course, a 6-week online seminar on boundary setting and blended family dynamics. It was the perfect resume. It showed initiative. It demonstrated a commitment to process. My father, a man who worships process, was enchanted. They were married within a year. Her transition into Norval Provision County was just as ruthlessly efficient. She was hired as a mid-level HR manager. 18 months later, following a comprehensive internal and external search, she was promoted to Chief People Officer. She earned it. Mara. My father told me over a tense Sunday dinner, mistaking my silence for disapproval. It was entirely merit-based. I just nodded. I was already in the compliance department by then. I knew what merit-based meant. That evening, I used my system privileges to pull the nomination file from the HR Governance Committee. The policy for appointing a C-level officer is ironclad, a document I helped draft. It requires the sign-off of the CEO, the chair of the Compensation Committee, the lead independent director on the board, and the head of internal controls. The file was thin. I found my father's signature, bold and declarative. I found the signature of the compensation chair, a man my father golfs with every Thursday. The other two signature lines, the ones meant to provide independent oversight and control, were empty. Two vital checks and balances, simply bypassed. That file is why I chose compliance. I never wanted to run a division. I never wanted my father's chair. I wanted the one thing this family, and this company, fears above all else: an unalterable, auditable record. Compliance is the skeleton of the corporation, the one place where rules are not suggestions. It is the only department that can, with the cold, impartial authority of a line of code, force the most powerful people in the room to answer a direct question. In a world built on unspoken agreements and buried emotions, I armed myself with standard operating procedures. You can't gaslight a policy manual. My real work began 9 months ago. It started not with a bang, but with a procurement request, a new staffing vendor. Rook & Larch LLC had been added to the preferred supplier list. This, in itself, was unusual. Our vendor onboarding process is a bureaucratic nightmare, a 6-month gauntlet of financial disclosures, insurance verifications, and security audits. Rook & Larch had been approved, from initial application to first payment, in 72 hours. The justification was an urgent, unforeseen seasonal staffing need. In Norval's system, urgent is a red flag. It's the word executives use to bypass the controls. I pulled the digital contract. It was a standard services agreement, but the contact person listed for Rook & Larch was a B. Vossen. The name was close enough to be a coincidence, and then instead of an S, a plausible typo. But I am paid to distrust coincidence. I ran a search on the name, and it led nowhere, just a ghost. The true mistake was in the metadata. Most people don't know that when you create a PDF, the file carries a hidden history. Embedded in the initial proposal document, in the author field, was a name, B. Voss. And in the recovery email field for the vendor's online portal account, a field most people forget to scrub, was an old personal Hotmail address, one I recognized from the early days of her relationship with my father, Brielle. Voss88, Hotmail.com, a single, sloppy, altered character on the contract, a digital fingerprint she forgot to wipe. That was the first crack. From that moment, I stopped being just a director. I became a collector. My audit began slowly, a quiet aggregation of small things, the procedural anomalies that, taken alone, look like mistakes but, when compiled, form a mosaic of intent. I pulled Brielle's quarterly conflict of interest disclosure forms. Every officer must sign them, attesting under penalty of termination that they have no financial relationships with any Norval vendor. In the section titled Related Party Transactions, her form for the last 3 quarters contains just one, neat, handwritten word, none. I cross-referenced the employee rosters. The roles Rook & Larch were supposedly filling, warehouse temps, data entry clerks, were already staffed by our primary, long-term vendor. Then I looked at the timesheets. The hours billed by Rook & Larch were ghosts. They were block billed, allocated to general cost centers, never to a specific project manager. I dug into the payment authorizations. Norval policy, which I wrote, mandates that any single service invoice over $50,000 must be approved by a vice president. I ran a query on all payments to Rook & Larch. I found no payments over the threshold. Instead, I found a steady, relentless stream of invoices, twice a week, for $49,500, $49,800, $49,999. They were all split, structured payments, designed to fly under the exact approval threshold I had built. Each one was auto-approved by a junior accounts payable clerk who was just following the rules. Finally, I pulled the hiring minutes for the few managers Rook & Larch had supposedly placed within HR itself. Our policy requires 2 witnesses for any salaried hire, the hiring manager and a representative from the HR committee. I found a dozen files. Not a single one had a witness signature from the hiring manager. They were all signed by the same person, Brielle's executive assistant. Blank forms, unwitnessed minutes, split payments, an alias on a contract, a ghost in the metadata. Each one was a small, sharp piece of stone. For 9 months, I've been collecting them. Last night, standing on that stage, feeling the heat of her palm on my skin and the ice of my father's words in my ear, I finally had the last piece I needed. My collection is complete. And as of 11:38 p.m. last night, it is all preserved under a legal hold. Safe from the digital shredder, the brand is about to be audited. My profession is not about feeling. It is about an unwavering, almost religious adherence to procedure. While others operate on loyalty, ambition, or fear, I operate on the standard operating procedure. My job is to sew the truth together, one documented thread at a time, until the resulting fabric is so tight and so strong that it cannot be torn, denied, or explained away. My resentment, the long, cold ache that settled in my bones 2 decades ago, isn't a distraction. It's a whetstone. It keeps my focus sharp. The morning after the gala, the legal hold is a silent, invisible fortress around the HR servers. Brielle and my father will wake up, one with a flicker of triumphant cruelty, the other with the satisfaction of a lesson enforced. They will see the red mark on my face fade. What they cannot see is the script I launch at 6:01 a.m. I log into Norval's ERP, the massive, complex brain that runs our entire financial life. I activate a continuous audit module. It's a tool I designed myself, a quiet, methodical bloodhound. I don't point it at Brielle Voss. I point it at a classification, North American Industry Classification System Code 561320, Temporary Help Services. I am telling the system to watch every single dollar moving in and out of our staffing vendor ecosystem. The script will run every 15 minutes, cross-referencing every new invoice, payment, and master file change against a set of control rules. It will flag anomalies. With Rook and Larch, the entire entity is the anomaly. The system is now my sleepless, impartial witness. Next, I pull the files secured by the legal hold. I open the vendor onboarding packet for Rook and Larch LLC. The W-9 form is there, a pristine PDF. It lists a taxpayer identification number and a legal address of record. It's a box number at a UPS store, which is lazy, but not incriminating. But the physical address listed on the Articles of Organization, filed with the Secretary of State, is what I'm looking for. 1450, Willow Creek Drive, Apt 21B, Grayford. I open a separate, non-company browser window and access the state's public property tax database. I key in the address. The system returns the name of the parcel owner, a large real estate investment trust. Then I access the county's public utilities database, which lists active accounts by address. The primary account holder for water and power at 1450 Willow Creek Drive, Apt 21B, is not Rook and Larch. It's a man named Julian Voss, Brielle's younger brother, a 28-year-old with a failed crypto venture and a public Instagram feed full of borrowed boats and rented sports cars. I screenshot the utility record. I save the file. Evidence/001.pdf. Now, the money. This is the heart of the machine. I trace the ACH payments from Norval's bank to the bank account listed on Rook and Larch's W-9. The money lands, and then, almost immediately, it moves. The account for Rook and Larch is a simple pass-through. My system privileges allow me to follow the outbound transfers. The money doesn't go to a payroll processor. It doesn't go to an investment account. It circles, in a beautiful, horrifying loop, right back into our own ecosystem. The transfers, split into irregular amounts, $9,700, $15,200, $4,800, are wired to a single, high-limit corporate purchasing card, an American Express card. I pull the card's master record. It's one of Norval's own. I check the department code. It's not allocated to a specific executive. It's allocated to a general HR cost center. Employee welfare and events. I check the list of authorized users. There is only one, not Brielle. That would be too obvious. The sole manager and reconciler of the card is her executive assistant. Brielle isn't just paying her brother for ghost employees. She's using him as a launderer to fill a secret, off-book slush fund, disguising the theft as team-building lunches and holiday bonuses. It is a closed-loop system of fraud. I diagram the entire cash flow. Evidence 002 PDF. Intent is next. Stupidity is not a crime, but this is not stupidity. This is design. I pull the digital contract renewals for Rook and Larch. There are 4 of them, one for each quarter of the past year, each one extending their emergency services. Each one bears Brielle's digital signature. I run the certificate details. I check the metadata. The signature log is a prosecutor's dream. Not one of the 4 documents was signed from Brielle's device or her IP address. The system log is explicit. Action. Document signed by proxy. User, EA Voss, on behalf of B. Voss. Her assistant, the same assistant who reconciles the Amex, the same assistant who witnessed the non-existent hires. Brielle never even touched the documents. She created a human firewall, a layer of plausible deniability. But the digital log doesn't care about plausible. It only cares about the username and the timestamp. Evidence/003.pdf. The data is cold. I need the human texture. I use my position as manager of the Ethics and Controls hotline to open an anonymous intake. I contact 2 junior-level HR coordinators who have previously filed minor complaints about overtime discrepancies. I frame my inquiry as a routine audit of Q4 workload, assuring them their identities are protected under our whistleblower policy. I ask them to describe the process for logging temporary staffing hours. The first one, user 1138, types back in the secure chat. It's weird. We're told to create placeholder profiles for Rook and Larch people, but we never meet them. We're just given a block of hours. The second, user 1142, is more direct. They call them ghost candidates. We were told by assistant's name to add their hours to our project logs to get our own team's OT approved at quarter end. It's how HR makes its numbers. It feels like lying, but it's a direct order. They are describing, without knowing it, the precise mechanics of the fraud, using ghost headcount to absorb phantom costs and justify inflated budgets. I strip their names and metadata from the transcripts, leaving only their sworn, time-stamped testimony, evidence 004.pdf. Evidence is worthless if it's inadmissible. My collection is now a liability on my personal drive. I compile all 4 evidence files, plus the original W-9, the state records, the ACH trace logs, and the interview transcripts. I encrypt the folder. Then, I create the most important document of all, the chain of custody. It is a simple text file, a log detailing every file I have accessed, the exact server time, what I did, and where I saved the new, encrypted package. I do not email it. I transfer the package to a new, air-gapped USB drive. I walk down to the 21st floor, to the legal department. I don't go to the general counsel, my father's man. I go to the office of Sarah Jenkins, the VP of litigation, a woman who came from the SEC and who despises corporate malfeasance more than she values corporate politics. I close her door. I say nothing. I simply place the USB drive and a printed copy of the chain of custody log on her desk. She reads the log, her expression unmoving. She looks at me. Is this all of it, Mara? It is the complete package as of this morning. She takes a blue pen, signs her name and the date at the bottom of the log, and slides it into her desk drawer. She plugs the USB into her own workstation, and I watch her co-sign the digital manifest. The evidence is no longer just my discovery. It is now a privileged and protected legal file, co-owned by the company's litigation counsel. The trap is now legally binding. My final act of the morning is to set the stage. I open the corporate calendar. The quarterly all-hands town hall is in 2 days. It is my father's favorite day of the quarter. He gets to stand on a stage, under bright lights, and talk about family first. I create a new meeting invitation. Title, Urgent, Vendor Re-Verification Audit. PwC. Required attendees: Brielle Voss. Assistant's name: Head of Accounts Payable. PwC Audit Partner. Optional attendees: Dean Keene. Start time: 10:00 a.m., 2 days from now. Exactly 60 minutes after the town hall begins. Location: the glass boardroom. I have already cleared the time with the PwC partner, citing a critical control deficiency. He is legally obligated to attend. Brielle will see the invitation. She will see the names of the external auditors. She will see the direct conflict with her husband's triumphant town hall. She will be cornered, forced to choose between the audit she cannot escape and the performance she is supposed to be part of. The work is done. All that remains is the presentation. I open a new PowerPoint file. The title page is blank white, black text, confidential, internal controls review, Q4. Selected vendor analysis. It will be 14 slides long, the appendix, containing every log, every screenshot, every line of testimony, will be 112 pages. I export the final deck to PDF, and as a final, precise act of ownership, I run the file through a cryptographic hashing algorithm. I take the resulting 64-character SJ256 hash and paste it in tiny 8-point font into the footer of every single page. E3B0C44 at FC49 AFBF4C8 FB92 427A41E464 GOM B4 4 1 B2B8 55. It is my signature. It is a mathematical proof. It means that if even one pixel, one comma, is ever changed on any page, this digital fingerprint will break. The document is now an absolute, unalterable, and verifiable fact. My profession is to build the cage. The town hall is when I will present the key. My father's narrative is that my mother, Eleanor, was a brilliant but fragile artist who couldn't handle the pressures of building a business. It's a convenient, slightly tragic story he tells at cocktail parties. It's also a lie. Eleanor Keene was not the co-founder's wife. She was the co-founder. Norval Provision Company began in her father's warehouse, with her logistics expertise and 7 of her family friends' seed money. When she and my father divorced, the split was acrimonious. He kept the company. She took a payout for her preferred shares and, supposedly, walked away. My father has spent 20 years building his empire on the foundation she laid, all while erasing her name from its history. He thought he had bought her out. He was wrong. My mother died of a fast-moving cancer when I was 22. She left me her house, a modest portfolio, and a single, old-fashioned key. It led to a floor safe hidden beneath a loose parquet tile in her study. Inside, there was no jewelry. There was no emotional, handwritten letter. My mother was not a sentimental woman. She was a strategic one. Inside the safe was a single, file-bound document. It was titled Irrevocable Proxy Agreement, dated the day her divorce from my father was finalized. It was a masterpiece of legal foresight. My mother knew my father's character, his appetites, his precise vulnerabilities. She knew that selling her shares was a surrender, so she had engineered a fail-safe. The document was a voting proxy, signed and notarized, from the 7 original angel investors, the ones who had backed her, not him. They had all converted their debt to equity, holding a significant, if silent, minority stake for decades. The proxy granted her, and in the event of her death, her named heir, me, the sole and irrevocable right to vote their combined shares. But it was conditional. It was a dead man's switch. The proxy could only be activated under one specific, narrowly defined circumstance. I read the clause so many times I have it memorized. The rights would become active upon presentation of verifiable proof of a material breach of ethics, defined as, but not limited to, systemic fraud within the human resources, payroll, or supplier contracting functions of the company. She had known, even 20 years ago, exactly where to look. She had left me a map and a cannon, pointed directly at the company's weakest structural point. The first thing I did was check the legality, An irrevocable proxy is a difficult instrument to break, but time can erode anything. I took the document not to Norval's counsel, but to an external securities lawyer, the best in the state. He confirmed it. The notarizations were valid. The language was ironclad. The springing condition was unconventional but legally sound. The only hurdle, he'd said, was that the signers were likely old, scattered, or dead. That was a year ago. My work on the Rook and Larch case was not an accident. It was a hunt. I was not just looking for fraud. I was looking for the specific key to unlock the weapon my mother had left me. Finding the 7 investors was my private, painstaking project, conducted on nights and weekends. It was an audit of a different kind. 4 of them were easy. They were old Grayford money, still living at the same addresses listed on the 2-decade-old agreement. I approached them quietly, individually, at their homes. I showed them my mother's document. They remembered her. They remembered her warning them about my father. Their loyalty was not to Norval. It was to Eleanor. The other 3 were harder. One had died, but his shares were in a custodial trust at a bank. I presented the proxy to the trust officer, who, after 3 weeks of legal review, confirmed the proxy was a binding condition on the shares. The second had moved to Arizona, and I flew there one weekend to meet him at his retirement community. He signed the addendum before I finished my tea. The third had liquidated her holdings into a family foundation, but the legal counsel for the foundation, after reviewing the original proxy, agreed it was a covenant that traveled with the equity. I didn't just want their verbal agreement, I needed a modern, unassailable confirmation. My lawyer drafted a simple, 1-page addendum for each of them to sign, attesting that they acknowledged the original proxy, that I was the rightful heir to the voting rights, and that the terms of its activation remained in full force. I had each signature witnessed and notarized by an independent party. This packet, the original proxy and the 7 new addendums, now sits in the same floor safe where my mother left the original. When I proved the Rook and Larch scheme, the ghost employees, the pass-through payments, the supplier fraud, the HR-based slush fund, I didn't just find a violation of Norval's Policy 7.4a. I found the verifiable proof of a material breach. If, when, I present this proof, I will temporarily control the voting block of those 7 investors. Their combined stake, legacy shares from the very first seed round, represents 38% of the company's stock. My father and the current board, in contrast, control a combined 42%. My own vested shares and the shares of a few other longtime employees who my mother also trusted give me another 14%. The math is simple. The moment I prove the breach, I will control 52% of the company. I will become, for the duration of one emergency meeting, the majority shareholder. The gala was 2 nights ago. My evidence package, co-signed by legal, is locked. My slide deck is hashed and finalized. Yesterday morning, I initiated the last 2 steps of the protocol. First, I filed a formal notice of concern with Norval's Internal Ethics Committee. This is the by-the-book path. I attached the 14-slide summary deck, not the full appendix, and cited the specific corporate bylaws that had been violated. The committee, which is chaired by my father's COO, is now legally obligated to respond. The bylaws, which I helped write, give them a 10-day window to open a formal investigation or dismiss the claim. This notice starts the official, internal clock. Second, at the exact same time, I submitted a report to the external, third-party whistleblower hotline. This hotline is managed not by us, but by PwC, our independent auditors. My submission was filed under the legal protections of Sarbanes-Oxley. It was anonymous, but I included a secure key that would allow me to verify my identity to them later. In this report, I did not hold back. I uploaded the full 112-page appendix, the bank traces, the W-9s, the metadata logs, the witness testimony. This move is the insurance policy. The Internal Ethics Committee will almost certainly try to bury my notice, to protect my father and Brielle, but the external auditors are now in receipt of the full, unredacted truth. They are legally and professionally on the hook. They cannot ignore a whistleblower report of this magnitude, especially one that details demonstrable fraud in the payroll and vendor systems they are paid to audit. I have just created two separate, unavoidable paths to the same destination. One clock is ticking inside the building, the other is ticking outside. The pincer is set. The town hall is tomorrow. The trigger, when it's finally pulled, is not my own. It is an act of sheer, unadulterated arrogance from the Human Resources Department. An email lands in my inbox at 8:15 a.m., the day before the town hall. Subject: Urgent, Q4. Seasonal staffing shortfall. Expedited vendor approval required. It's from a mid-level HR director. A man I know is one of Brielle's loyalists. The message is a masterpiece of manufactured panic. Our primary staffing vendor, he claims, has unexpectedly defaulted on their commitment. We are facing a critical gap in warehouse fulfillment for the holiday rush. The entire quarter is at risk, but a solution has been found. By fortunate coincidence, Rook & Larch LLC has the immediate capacity to deploy a rescue team and save the quarter. They are requesting a waiver of the competitive bidding process and an emergency addendum to Rook & Larch's existing contract. It is signed by the director, but it is CC'd to Brielle's executive assistant. It is a command disguised as a plea. They are not just trying to steal more money, they are trying to retroactively justify the entire fraudulent relationship, to paper over the 9 months of ghost employees with a new, legitimate crisis. They are building their alibi, and they need my signature to validate it. They have just handed me the gun. I don't respond immediately. I follow procedure. I reply all, adding Sarah Jenkins from legal and the chair of the Internal Ethics Committee. My response is one line. Per policy, 14.2b, vendor diligence, all emergency waivers require a supplemental debarment check. Please stand by. Debarment check is corporate jargon. It's a simple search to see if a company has been barred from government contracts for fraud or misconduct. Norvale, as a food supplier, technically has federal contracts, so this check is mandatory. It's also something Brielle, in her haste, has clearly never considered. I take the employer identification number, EIN, from Rook & Larch's W9, the one that leads to her brother's apartment. I run it through 3 national business databases. In the first 2, it comes up clean, a simple LLC in good standing. In the third, a deep search aggregator that pulls state-level court filings. I find a match. The EIN for Rook & Larch LLC is identical to the EIN of a dissolved entity from Delaware, Vossen Solutions LLC. The name sends a jolt of cold electricity through me. Vossen. 1 letter away from her own maiden name. 1 letter away from the B. Vossen alias on the original contract. It's not a typo, it's a pattern. The record shows Vossen Solutions LLC was fined $75,000 2 years ago for payroll tax irregularities before it was dissolved and, apparently, resurrected as Rook & Larch in our state. This is the final, concrete link. Brielle isn't just using her brother, she's using a recycled, previously flagged corporate shell to run her scheme. I wait an hour, I let them sweat. Then, I reply all to the entire, high-stakes email chain. All I write, the very picture of procedural diligence. The supplemental check has revealed a potential EIN conflict with a previously flagged entity, Vossen Solutions LLC. This entity shares a name pattern with our CPO. To protect the company and all officers involved, we must proceed with extreme caution. Then, I set the trap. It's not a refusal. A refusal can be overridden by my father. I provide a condition. I will approve this emergency waiver on one non-negotiable condition. CPO Brielle Voss must personally execute a new, specific conflict of interest declaration, attesting that she, nor any member of her family, has any financial interest in or relationship with Rook & Larch LLC, Vossen Solutions LLC, or any of their principals. Given the legal implications of the EIN match, this form cannot be a simple digital signature. It must be physically signed, in ink, and legally notarized. Please have the completed, notarized document on my desk by 5 p.m. today for me to review before processing the waiver. The checkmate is in that one word, notarized. A standard corporate form is one thing. A notarized legal document is another. Signing a false statement on that form is not just a policy violation, it is perjury. I have given her a choice: confess by refusing to sign or commit a felony by signing. The rest of the afternoon is silent. The 5 p.m. deadline ticks closer. I can feel the panic radiating from the executive floor. At 4:52 p.m., 8 minutes before the deadline, a new email pings. It's from the assistant. Mara, the email reads, Brielle was able to get this done between meetings. Please see attached. We appreciate you expediting this so we can save the quarter. Attached is a PDF. COI signed B. Voss, PDF. I open it. It's the form, and at the bottom, in blue ink, is Brielle's flowing, arrogant signature. Next to it is a notary stamp, complete with a date and a signature from the notary. My heart beats a little faster. Did she actually do it? Did she just commit perjury? I zoom in. The signature is slightly pixelated. The blue is a little too bright, a little too uniform. It sits on top of the signature line, not on it. The notary stamp is the same. It's flawless. But it has no impression, no bleed-through. It's a perfect digital image. I don't need to be a forensics expert. I just need to right-click. I go to Document Properties. The author field does not list Brielle. It lists her assistant. I click on the Fonts tab. It lists the standard corporate fonts and 2 embedded image objects. I go to the advanced metadata. Creation software. Adobe Photoshop 24.0. She didn't sign it. Her assistant, in a fit of desperate, idiotic loyalty, Googled notary stamp, forged Brielle's signature from a file, and pasted them both onto the PDF. They have just committed forgery and wire fraud, and they have sent the evidence directly to the Director of Ethics. I lean back, and for a moment, I just breathe. The sheer, colossal stupidity of it is breathtaking. I pick up my phone. I don't email. I call the chairman of the ethics committee. I have a critical situation, I say, my voice flat, cold. The CPO's office has just submitted a forged legal document to my department to push through a fraudulent contract. This is a 5-alarm fire. He is silent. He is my father's man. But forgery is a line he cannot ignore. I am rejecting the document, I continue. I am formally requiring CPO Voss to appear in person before the full ethics committee tomorrow at 10:00 a.m., with legal counsel present, to explain this discrepancy and to sign the document in our presence. The town hall is scheduled to begin at 9:00 a.m. Brielle will be on stage, next to my father, accepting applause for her humanitarian work. Now, she will have to step off that stage, walk past the entire senior leadership, and enter a glass boardroom to be interrogated by the ethics committee. The timing is a vice. As if on cue, a new email notification appears on my screen. It is not from anyone inside Norvale. It is from the lead audit partner at PwC. The subject line is one chilling word: privileged. It is his response to my whistleblower report. The letter is brief, formal, and devastating. Dear Ms. Keene, it begins, using the secure, anonymous credentials I had provided. In light of the evidence submitted, our firm has conducted a preliminary forensic review. We can confirm that the vendor entity in question demonstrates significant indicators of common ownership with family members of a senior corporate officer. Furthermore, our analysis of ACH transfers confirms a circular payment scheme consistent with the misappropriation of corporate assets. We are escalating this to the board's audit committee, effective immediately. I have it. The verifiable proof. It is no longer my word against hers. It is the word of one of the largest audit firms in the world. My mother's proxy is no longer a conditional weapon. It is an active one. I open my personal, encrypted email. I pull up the draft I prepared a year ago. I attach the letter from PwC. I attach the forged PDF from Brielle's assistant. I address the email to the 7 investors, their lawyers, my external counsel, and the corporate secretary of Norval Provision Company. Subject: Activation of Irrevocable Proxy Agreement, 10/22/2025. To the Board of Directors and relevant parties. This email serves as formal notice. Pursuant to the Irrevocable Proxy Agreement dated May 12, 2004, the conditions for activation have been met and verified. Attached. Please find independent confirmation from our external auditors of a material ethics breach, specifically, systemic fraud within the supplier contracting functions. Effective immediately. I, Mara Keene, am exercising the full, combined voting rights of the signatory shares. Per corporate bylaws, I am hereby calling an emergency meeting of shareholders to be convened in 60 minutes, immediately following the conclusion of tomorrow's quarterly town hall at 11:00 a.m. The agenda will be singular: a vote on the termination for cause of CPO Brielle Voss, and a vote of no confidence in CEO Dean Keene, pending a full independent investigation. I hit send. The trap is no longer being set. It is sprung. Everything is now in motion. The town hall tomorrow will not be my father's celebration. It will be a prelude to an execution. All the pieces are on the stage. The microphones, the cameras, the meticulously kept minutes, and me. I look at my reflection in the dark monitor. The bruise on my cheek has faded to a sickly yellow-green, an ugly, visible truth. They thought it would be a reminder of my place. They were right. It's a reminder of exactly where I need to be. The auditorium is a cathedral of corporate self-congratulation. 300 Norval employees, a sea of business-casual believers, sit in tiered rows. On stage, a massive LED screen glows with the Norval logo. My father stands at a sleek, minimalist lectern, bathed in a soft, forgiving spotlight. He looks magnificent. He looks like a CEO. Brielle is seated behind him in a leather armchair. A portrait of serene power. My email, the one calling for their heads, has been circulating at the board level for 16 hours. They know, but they are performers, and this is their stage. They believe they can control the narrative. My father grips the sides of the lectern, his smile radiating practiced sincerity. "Good morning, Norval," he begins, his voice resonating through the state-of-the-art sound system. "I want to start today by talking about what makes this company different. It's not our supply chain, it's not our profit margin, it's our culture." He pauses for effect. Behind him, the screen dissolves from the logo to a professionally shot photograph from the gala. It's a wide shot of the three of us on stage. My father and Brielle are beaming. I am smiling my tight, corporate smile. The faint yellow bruise on my cheek artfully airbrushed into oblivion by the PR team. "Family is our culture," he declares. "We look out for each other. We protect each other. We are a family." A polite, conditioned wave of applause ripples through the room. I am sitting in the front row, a small island of stillness. My laptop is open. My slide deck is loaded. My heart is a cold, steady drum against my ribs. After 20 minutes of financial platitudes and market projections, my father checks his watch. "And now, for a brief update from our Controls and Ethics Department. Here's my daughter, Mara Keene." He says it with a casual warmth that makes my skin crawl. He thinks this is part of the performance, a demonstration of family unity. I walk to the stage, my heels clicking a sharp, metronomic beat on the polished floor. As I reach the steps, Brielle's head of HR, a man whose loyalty is absolute, stands up. "Dean," he says into his lapel mic, a hint of panic in his voice. "I don't think we have time for this segment. We should move directly to the Q&A. My father looks momentarily confused. He's losing the script. I don't look at him. I look at the HR head. My 12-minute ethics update was approved and locked on the town hall agenda 2 weeks ago. "Robert," I say into my own mic, my voice calm and clear, "are you suggesting we violate the pre-approved, publicly posted agenda?" He flinches. I have used the language of process, the only language this company truly respects. My father, sensing a misstep, waves a magnanimous hand. No, no, of course not. The agenda stands. Mara, the floor is yours. I nod. I connect my laptop. The giant screen behind them flickers, and my title slide appears. Confidential, Internal Controls Review. I click the remote in my hand. Good morning, I begin, my eyes scanning the hundreds of faces. As part of our commitment to continuous improvement, my department conducts regular audits of high-cost centers. Today, I'll be sharing a few key findings from our Q4 review of temporary contractor expenses. I click to slide 3. A stark line graph fills the screen. A flat blue line, labeled Primary Vendor Spend, runs along the bottom. A jagged red line, labeled Rook and Larch LLC Spend, rockets upward, an unnatural, impossible spike. As you can see, I say, spending with this particular vendor shows a significant and statistically anomalous increase, inconsistent with all projected operational needs. I see Brielle shift in her chair. My father's smile is frozen. I click to slide 7. The screen now shows a flowchart, a map of arrows and boxes. It is the ACH transfer diagram. Our review traced the payment flow from this vendor. The funds did not follow a standard disbursement pattern. Instead, they were routed through a single holding account and then transferred, in structured, sub-threshold amounts, directly to a corporate purchasing card managed within the HR department. The room is silent now. The air is growing thin. I can hear the hum of the servers. I click to slide 11. It is a screenshot of the forged PDF. Side by side are 2 close-ups. One of Brielle's authentic signature from her employment contract. The other is the pixelated, pasted image from the document her assistant sent me. Below them, a red box highlights the file's metadata. Creation software. Adobe Photoshop 24.0. Most troubling, I say, my voice dropping slightly, were the control deficiencies we discovered in the documentation. Critical legal forms, intended to mitigate conflicts of interest, appear to have been digitally fabricated. A gasp ripples through the front few rows. I have not accused anyone. I have simply stated the facts the system has provided. The facts are doing all the work. These financial irregularities are serious, I continue. But a company's ethical health is not just about money. It is about people. It is about how we treat our employees, especially when we believe no one is watching. I click again. The slide deck vanishes. The massive screen goes black for a single, breathtaking second, and then it is filled with high-definition video, the footage from the Rivermark Hotel's security dome. The camera angle is high, clinical. It shows the stage, the lights, the applause. It shows me placing the medal over Brielle's head. It shows my lips move. It shows her hand strike my cheek. The sound is muted, but the motion is brutally clear. The slap, my father leaning in, his whisper, my slow, deliberate tilt of the head into the camera's view. Along the bottom of the screen, a caption appears, the kind used in evidence presentations. I typed it myself. Event, Norval Gala, date, 10/19/2025. Incident, classification, workplace violence, physical assault by a corporate officer. The silence in the auditorium is absolute. It is a living thing, a heavy blanket of shock that has smothered every other sound. 300 people are holding their breath. They are all witnesses now. Brielle finds her voice first. It is a ragged whisper, amplified by the mic still pinned to her dress. This is a private matter, a family matter. I turn to face her, my own microphone held steady. No, Brielle, I say, my voice devoid of heat. A simple statement of legal fact. It ceases to be a private matter when it occurs at a company-sponsored event, in full view of employees and the press. It ceases to be a family matter when it is an act of physical violence perpetrated by a chief people officer against a subordinate employee. At that point, it becomes a textbook example of a hostile work environment and a catastrophic failure of corporate governance. I click the remote one last time. The video vanishes. The final slide appears. It is a scanned image of the letter from PwC, the letterhead stark and official. I give them a moment to read the key phrases: preliminary forensic review, significant indicators of common ownership, circular payment scheme consistent with the misappropriation of corporate assets, escalating this to the board's audit committee. This is the kill shot, the confirmation, the independent, irrefutable proof. "Turn it off," my father snarls. It is not a request. It is a command from a king who has just realized he is naked. He glares at the tech booth at the back of the auditorium. "I said turn off the screen, now." The technicians hesitate, their hands hovering over the controls. I don't raise my voice. I don't need to. I speak calmly into the microphone, addressing my father, but letting the entire room hear. "I'm afraid I can't allow that. Dean, according to Corporate Communications Policy 11.3, the policy you signed, once a town hall meeting is officially in session, all audio and video feeds, including screen presentations, are automatically recorded and streamed to a secure, off-site cloud server for archival and compliance purposes. The recording cannot be stopped or edited until the meeting is formally adjourned. It's for our protection." His face, projected 20 feet high on the screens flanking the stage, is a mask of disbelief and pure, undiluted rage. I have trapped him inside his own rules. The camera is his witness, and the policy is his cage. I turn back to the silent, staring audience. In light of the evidence presented of a material ethics breach, including supplier fraud and workplace violence involving a corporate officer, I am, as of this moment, formally invoking my rights as a shareholder and exercising the voting authority of a majority proxy block. My voice is steady, amplified, filling every corner of the silent hall. Per the corporate bylaws, I am calling an emergency meeting of shareholders to be convened in exactly 60 minutes. The agenda will be the immediate termination of Brielle Voss and a vote on the suspension of all executive powers of CEO Dean Keene, pending the outcome of a full, board-led, independent investigation. I look from my father's face to Brielle's, and then out at the hundreds of employees who are finally seeing the truth behind the motto. The meeting is over. The war has just begun. The 60 minutes between the town hall's conclusion and the emergency shareholders meeting are the most silent, violent hour of my life. There is no shouting. There are no frantic phone calls. There is only the low, humming sound of a corporate empire processing a fatal error. The meeting is held in the main boardroom, a glass-walled box on the 30th floor overlooking the gray expanse of the town. The attendees are the 10 members of the board of directors: my father, ashen-faced Brielle, myself, and a phalanx of lawyers. My external counsel, a quiet man named Marcus, sits beside me. Norvell's general counsel, a man named Henderson, who has been on my father's payroll for 20 years, looks physically ill. Henderson is legally obligated to chair the meeting. He clears his throat, the sound unnaturally loud in the tense silence. "This emergency meeting of shareholders has been called to order," he begins, his voice a monotone. "The single item on the agenda is a motion brought by shareholder Mara Keene, acting as proxy." He can barely say the words. "Before we proceed," I state, my voice cutting through his hesitation, "I ask that Counsel Henderson read the relevant section of the corporate bylaws." Henderson's eyes flicker toward my father, who gives a minute, almost imperceptible shake of his head. "The bylaws are extensive," Henderson demurs. "Perhaps we can move to the motion." I insist, I say. Specifically, Bylaw 12, Section 4, Conduct of Corporate Officers. Trapped. Henderson shuffles his papers. He reads, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. "Any officer found to have engaged in a material ethics breach, including but not limited to financial malfeasance, workplace violence, or demonstrable conflict of interest, is subject to immediate termination for cause." He swallows. Furthermore, the board reserves the right to initiate clawback provisions, reclaiming any vested compensation or stock options granted during the period of the malfeasance. The legal framework is now laid. The consequences have been stated. I place a single, thick, leather-bound folder on the polished mahogany table. For the record, I announce, I am now formally submitting the proxy packet containing the original, notarized, irrevocable proxy agreement from the 7 founding angel investors and the 7 recently executed and notarized addendums confirming my authority, the combined voting power of these shares, plus my own, constitutes 52.1% of all voting stock. This is the temporary majority. The General Counsel examines the top page, his face paling. He has no choice. The proxy is in order, he concedes. I nod, a gesture of finality. Then I put forth the following resolution. Whereas, the Chief People Officer, Brielle Voss, has been demonstrated through verified video and forensic accounting evidence to have engaged in workplace violence and a systemic supplier fraud scheme. And whereas, this constitutes a material ethics breach under Bylaw 12, Section 4. Be it resolved that Brielle Voss is immediately suspended from all duties as CPO, that the board is authorized to launch a full, independent investigation led by external counsel, and that all payments, current and future, to the vendor known as Rook & Larch LLC are frozen, effective immediately. The words hang in the air, precise and deadly. My father finally speaks, his voice a low, dangerous growl. This is a farce, an obvious and blatant conflict of interest. This entire meeting is the result of a personal vendetta, brought by a disgruntled daughter against her stepmother. She is using her position in the company to fabricate a case for personal reasons. The motion is invalid. This is the attack I have been waiting for. This is his only move. He believes he can paint me as emotional, hysterical, compromised. I do not respond to him. I do not even look at him. I turn to the lead independent director, a woman named Iris Chang, who has been on the board for a decade. Mr. Keene raises a valid point about potential conflicts, I say calmly, which is why I recused myself from the final stage of this process. I slide a second, much thinner folder across the table to her. This, I say, is a copy of the minutes from a special session of the Internal Ethics Committee held yesterday afternoon after the forged document was submitted. In it, I formally disclosed the personal relationship and recused myself from any final judgment. The committee, acting independently, then voted unanimously to confirm that my findings were based on objective, verifiable evidence and that no financial conflict of interest exists on my part. The minutes are signed by all 5 committee members. I have just used his own corporate machinery, the very committee he created. To legally certify my objectivity, I have taken his only weapon and melted it down. His face darkens. He has been outmaneuvered, not by emotion, but by his own rulebook. We will now vote on the resolution. I state, the company uses an electronic voting system. A prompt appears on the small tablets in front of each board member. The vote is weighted. My 52.1% a digital hammer. I press I. The result appears on the main screen in less than 90 seconds. Resolution 1. Passed. For 78.4%. Against 21.6%. Even some of his own board, seeing the mountain of evidence, have abandoned him. Henderson, his face ashen, is forced to translate the vote into action. The resolution has passed, effective immediately. Brielle Voss is suspended. The board. The ethics clause is a self-executing weapon. Henderson, Iris Chang interjects, her voice sharp. The bylaws are clear. The vote doesn't just suspend her. The finding of a material breach voids her employment contract. She is not suspended. She is terminated. For cause. Is that correct? Henderson can only nod. A man defeated. That is correct. Brielle makes a small, strangled sound. The entire edifice of her life, the job, the power, the unvested stock options worth millions, has just evaporated. My father stands up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. I demand a recess. We need to consult with counsel. This is moving too fast. He is trying to stop the clock, to find an angle, to regain control. But the momentum is no longer his. It is mine. And before I can speak, Another voice cuts in. It is the lawyer for the independent directors, a man I have never met. He speaks quietly, but his words are cannonballs. A recess may be prudent, he says, looking at Iris Chang, not my father. However, I feel compelled to remind the board that Bylaw 12 also contains a Section 6, Executive Oversight. This clause addresses the specific liability of a CEO in the event of a direct subordinate engaging in sustained financial malfeasance. It is commonly referred to as the failure of oversight provision. My father freezes. He turns to the lawyer, a look of pure shock on his face. He thought this was about Brielle. He has just been told that he is the next target. The room is silent as the implication sinks in. The fraud happened on his watch. He is responsible. I do not give him a moment to recover. I seize the opening. The counsel raises a critical point, I say, my voice ringing with cold authority. The integrity of the pending investigation is paramount, to ensure that there is no possibility of interference, and to protect the shareholders from further liability. I am putting forth a second resolution. I look directly at my father. The man who told me I deserved to be hit. The man who tried to erase my mother. The man who built his kingdom on lies. Be it resolved that effective immediately, the signing authority of the Chief Executive Officer, Dean Keene, is suspended for all non-operational expenditures exceeding $25,000. All such expenditures will require the co-signature of the COO and the chair of the Audit Committee, pending the conclusion of the independent investigation into this matter. I have not asked for his termination, not yet. I have done something worse. I have taken his power. A CEO who cannot sign a check is not a CEO. He is a figurehead. He is a prisoner in the corner office. I look around the table. I call for a vote. The second vote passes. The result is just as damning. My father slumps in his chair, not just neutered, but publicly gelded. His authority, his identity, has been stripped away by a line item in a bylaw. The room is a vacuum, all the oxygen sucked out by the brutal, bloodless efficiency of the past 90 seconds. Brielle is weeping silently, not with regret, but with the comprehension of financial ruin. The lawyers are shuffling papers, already calculating their billable hours to manage the impending SEC filings and shareholder lawsuits. My father looks at me, his eyes two burning coals of pure primal hatred. He sees a usurper. He sees the ungrateful child who just stole his kingdom. He is waiting for my next move, my coronation, the moment I take his chair at the head of the table. He is about to be wrong for the last time. In the silence, I stand up. I unclip the laminated ID badge from the lapel of my jacket. It's the same badge I've worn every day for a decade. Mara Keene, Director, Controls and Ethics. I slide it across the polished table. It spins twice and comes to a stop directly in front of my father, next to his suspended signature pen. And with that, I say, my voice quiet but carrying in the stunned room, I am tendering my resignation from Norval Provision Company, effective upon the complete handover of my audit files to the independent counsel the board will appoint. The shock in the room is a physical thing. It is more profound than the video of the slap, more total than the revelation of the fraud. Brielle's sobbing stops mid-hiccup. My father's head snaps up, his expression of rage collapsing into pure, uncomprehending confusion. Even Iris Chang, my ally on the board, looks blindsided. My father speaks, his voice a hoarse croak. What? You did all this? To quit? You always misunderstood the objective, I say, looking at him, really seeing him for the old, hollow man he is. You thought this was an acquisition, a hostile takeover. This was never an acquisition. This was a sanitation, a cleanup. I turn to my lawyer, Marcus, and the board. My mother's proxy agreement, the one that gave me this temporary power, contains a final clause, a conflict of purpose covenant. It explicitly forbids the wielder of the proxy votes from holding any executive or salaried position within Norval Provision Company at the same time. She could not, and I cannot, wield this power to gain power. The moment I used it to clean the house, I was obligated to leave it. She didn't leave me a throne, Dean. She left me a mop. My father is speechless. This is a level of strategic planning so far beyond his own blunt force charisma that he cannot process it. He cannot understand an action not motivated by personal greed. My work here is done, I continue. The legal hold is in place. The external auditors are engaged. The executive officers responsible have been neutralized. The system can now do its job. You think we'll just let you walk away? Henderson, the general counsel, blusters, trying to find his footing. You've aired the company's dirty laundry. You've exposed us to... You're worried I'll be silenced? Or that this will be buried the moment I'm out the door? I ask. I open my laptop, which is still connected to the room's main display. I open my sent mail folder. There, at the top, is an email, time-stamped 11:01 a.m., exactly 1 minute after the shareholder meeting was called to order. This is a copy of a scheduled email that was automatically sent the moment this meeting began. I say, the recipients are listed on the screen for all to see. The Director of the State Labor Board, Division of Workplace Standards, the Senior Partner at PwC, designated for SEC whistleblower complaints, and for good measure, the lead investigative reporter at the Wall Street Journal. It contains, I say, the complete 112-page appendix, the forged documents, the ACH traces, the witness testimony, and, of course, the high-definition video file from the Rivermark Hotel, tagged Workplace Violence. My resignation ensures I am now legally a whistleblower, free from any non-disclosure agreement my employment contract may have contained. If you bury this investigation, if you attempt to retaliate or reinstate anyone, this entire package becomes public record. You are not just being watched by the board, you are being watched by the state. The choice is yours. A new, colder silence settles. I have just burned the ships, not just for me, but for all of them. I close the laptop. I have one final piece of business. From my leather portfolio, I pull a single, old, cream-colored envelope. It is the only personal item I have brought into this room. It is addressed simply, in my mother's strong, angular script, for Mara, when it's time. My father, I say, addressing the board, has often described my mother as sentimental, as fragile. He is, as in many things, mistaken. She was the most practical, logical person I've ever known. She left me this, not as a letter, but as a final business directive. I open the unsealed envelope and pull out a single sheet of her personal letterhead. I read it aloud. Mara, it begins, do not let them confuse you. There are only two things in this world, things as they are, and things as they are named. Most people live in the gray space between, and they call it business or family. Your power is not in your anger, it is in your precision. Your job is to call things by their true and proper names. A theft is a theft, a lie is a lie, a cage is a cage. Trust the child inside you who always knew how to name the truth. The rest is just process. I fold the letter. For 9 months, I have been naming the truth. My report names the fraud. The video names the violence. The proxy names the consequence. My mother's work, and my own, is finished. I turn to the 7 investors, who are patched in via video conference. To the members of the founding investment group, the proxy is now yours again. The power reverts to you. I release it with only one binding condition, which my counsel has already prepared. You must vote to amend the bylaws to make the Internal Ethics Committee a fully independent, board-level entity, with a non-negotiable 3-year term, shielded from all executive influence. You will build a permanent firewall. That is the price for this cleaning. They all nod. The deal is done. The room is silent. And then, something extraordinary happens. Iris Chang, the lead independent director, stands up. She looks not at me, but at the other board members. She is right, Iris says, her voice thick with a shame I did not expect. This, all of this, is a failure of our oversight. We, the board, have been charmed by share prices and a good story. We have failed in our duty. We forgot to ask the hard questions. We let the CEO put his new wife in a position of unchecked power. We signed off on the audits. We ignored the small whispers. On behalf of this board, I want to apologize to our shareholders, to our employees, and to Ms. Keene. You did the job we were supposed to do. You did it to the letter. From the back of the room, where several junior employees, the HR coordinators I had interviewed, the AP clerks, had been standing to watch, a sound begins. It is not the polite, corporate applause of the town hall. It is a slow, rhythmic clapping. It is sparse, then it grows. It is the sound of people who have lived in fear of the system, watching the system suddenly work for them. It is not for the drama. It is for the process. It is the sound of the machine finally, brutally, and beautifully working. My father, stripped of his power, his reputation, and his control, looks at me, his face a mask of curdled fury. He has only one word left. Traitor, he hisses, the word heavy with venom. You are a traitor to this company, a traitor to this family. I pick up my portfolio. I look at the man who was my father, at the woman who was his wife, at the board that was his court. No, Dean, I say, my voice clear and final. I am a compliance officer. I only use the rules you signed. I turn, and I walk out of the boardroom, leaving them to the wreckage. I don't look back. Revenge, I've learned, is not a dramatic, passionate affair. It is a series of quiet, administrative tasks. It is the meticulous completion of a checklist. The aftermath of the emergency meeting is not chaos. It is an orderly, almost placid, legal dismantling. The process, once initiated, is relentless. The first domino to fall is Brielle. The for-cause termination is a beautiful, brutal piece of corporate engineering. Her employment contract, a document she undoubtedly had her own lawyers review, is now a weapon turned against her. Within hours, she receives a formal, jargon-laden letter from the newly appointed external counsel. It informs her that, due to the board's finding of a material ethics breach, her severance agreement is null and void. There will be no golden parachute. There will be no negotiated exit. The real poison, however, is in the second paragraph, the clawback provision. The letter coolly informs her that all unvested stock options, a portfolio worth an estimated $8 million, are immediately forfeited. Furthermore, the board is exercising its right to reclaim the cash value of any options that did vest within the past 12 months, the period of the established fraud. They are not just firing her, they are sending her a bill for her own greed. She doesn't just leave with nothing, she leaves in debt to the company she defrauded. It's a clean, quiet, and financially devastating execution. The second item on the checklist is Rook & Larch LLC. The contract is terminated for breach. A team from Forensic Accounting, now supervised by PwC, begins the painstaking process of calculating the exact damages, every dollar paid for every ghost employee. A formal demand letter is sent to the registered address of the LLC, her brother's apartment, demanding the immediate repayment of $4.3 million. Simultaneously, the full evidence package, now bearing the official seal of the board's independent counsel, is messengered to the white-collar crime division of the district attorney's office. The referral notes potential charges of wire fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. Julian Voss, with his Instagram feed of rented Lamborghinis, is about to trade his designer sunglasses for a court-appointed lawyer. The third item is my father, the board, led by Iris Chang, moves with a speed that tells me they have been waiting for this moment for years. The COO, a quiet, competent man named George Riley, who has been with Norval since before my mother left, is appointed interim CEO. The press release is a masterpiece of corporate doublespeak, praising Dean Keene for his decades of service and announcing his decision to step back from day-to-day operations to focus on assisting the board with its comprehensive review. He is not fired. He is simply irrelevant, a ghost in his own corner office. His name still on the door, but his power disconnected, like a forgotten utility. He can attend meetings. He can offer his opinion. He just can't sign anything. He has become what he values least, a symbol. With the leadership decapitated, the board's next action is containment and purification. The newly independent Ethics Committee issues a company-wide communiqué. It is frank. It acknowledges serious lapses in executive conduct and announces the independent investigation. More importantly, it announces the establishment of a new, completely confidential support hotline managed by an external law firm for any employee who has experienced or witnessed retaliation, harassment, or unethical pressure from senior management. It is a formal invitation to every person Brielle ever bullied, to every manager my father ever steamrolled, to come forward and speak. It is an act of lancing the wound. The response, I'm told later, is overwhelming. My final 24 hours at Norval are spent in a sterile conference room with a team from the external counsel. It is a handover. I walk them through every file, every password, every step of my 9-month investigation. I answer their questions with the dispassionate clarity of a machine. My job is to make myself redundant, to ensure the evidence is so well organized, so idiot-proof, that my presence is no longer required. The last document I sign is a formal affidavit. It contains a single, crucial clause that I insisted upon. It legally seals the identities of the 2 junior HR coordinators who provided the testimony about the ghost candidates. Their names are redacted from all future versions of the report. They will be referred to only as Witness A and Witness B. They will be protected, their courage rewarded with anonymity. I have scrubbed my fingerprints from their lives. They called the truth by its name, and they will not be punished for it. At 4:55 p.m. On my last day, my corporate email account is still active. I have 1 email left to send. I compose a new message. The recipient is Brielle's personal email address, the old Hotmail account I found in the metadata months ago. The subject line is, "For your records." The body of the email is empty. There is only one attachment. It is a crisp, clean screenshot from the Norval Employee Handbook, a document she, as Chief People Officer, was responsible for writing and enforcing. I have highlighted a single sentence in yellow. It is from Section 9, Subsection C, Workplace Conduct. The highlighted sentence reads, "Any act of physical violence, regardless of intent, occurring at a company-sponsored event, will be subject to an automatic and immediate review by the Ethics Committee and is grounds for termination for cause." I don't write a salutation. I don't write a sign-off. I am not an angry stepdaughter. I am not a vengeful employee. I am a compliance officer, providing a final piece of documentation. I am reminding her that she was not destroyed by a personal vendetta. She was destroyed by her own rulebook. She was the author of her own execution. Below the screenshot, I type 2 words, my final official communication as a Norval employee. "Wishing you compliance." I hit send. Then I open my phone. I scroll through my contacts, the accumulated names and numbers of a life lived inside this company. I go to the settings. I find the option, erase all content and settings. A confirmation box appears. I press it without hesitation. The screen goes black, and then the small, white apple appears, a system being wiped clean, a fresh start. The silence is immediate and absolute. The work is done. I step out of the elevator and into the Norval Provision Company lobby for the last time. The space is a monument to my father's ego, a vast expanse of polished granite and brushed steel, dominated by a 30-foot waterfall cascading over the corporate logo etched into black stone. It is designed to make visitors feel small, insignificant. For the first time in my life, it works. I feel utterly, blessedly insignificant. The weight of the name keen, of the directorship, of the long, cold war I have been fighting since I was 12 years old, has been lifted. I am no longer a component of this machine. I am just a woman walking toward a door. The security guard at the front desk, a man named Arthur, who has known me since I was an intern, suddenly finds the monitor on his desk intensely interesting. He does not meet my eyes. News travels fast in a building like this. I am no longer the CEO's daughter, the director. I am an anomaly, a ghost who has already departed. My access badge deactivated mid-stride. The glass doors slide open with a soft, pneumatic hiss. The air that greets me is not the filtered, climate-controlled air of the tower. It is the air of Grayford in late October. It is alive. It carries the scent of yeast and baking bread from the trattoria on the corner. A rich, grounding smell. There is a damp, metallic tang on the wind. The promise of a distant rainstorm rolling in from the hills. The city sounds are muted but present. The rumble of a delivery truck. The distant siren. The murmur of pedestrians. For 9 months, my entire sensory world has been the hum of a server, the click of a keyboard, and the sterile scent of recycled air. This is the sound of a world that does not care about Bylaw 12, Section 4. It is the sound of freedom. I stand on the pavement for a moment, letting the midday sun warm my face. I have no destination. I have no plan. The future is a blank page, a report I have not yet written. The feeling is not triumph. It is not joy. It is a profound and unsettling quiet. The quiet of a battlefield after the guns have fallen silent. The objective has been achieved. The enemy is broken. But the adrenaline is gone, and all that remains is the vast, empty space where the war used to be. My phone is new. A cheap, anonymous burner I bought for cash this morning. It has only one contact in it. My lawyer's. It buzzes in my pocket, a vibration against my leg. I pull it out. A message from a number I do not recognize. My heart gives a single, hard kick against my ribs. The message is brief, just a few words, but I know instantly who it's from. It is from Witness B, from the young HR coordinator, the one who had typed. It feels like lying, but it's a direct order. The text reads, "Mara, did I do the right thing?" The question is so simple, so vulnerable. It is the question that haunts every person who decides to speak up against power. It is the fear that your small act of courage will be meaningless, or worse, that it will bring ruin upon you for nothing. She is not asking if we won. She is asking if it was worth it. I stand there on the crowded sidewalk, the city flowing around me, and I type my reply. I think of my mother's letter. Your job is to call things by their true and proper names. My response is just as brief. You called the event by its true name. That is always the right thing to do. It is enough. I hit send. I am not her boss anymore. I am not her protector. I am just another person on the street, offering a small, true thing to another, a moment of shared, quiet validation. As I slide the phone back into my pocket, my eyes drift across the street. A financial building opposite the Norval Tower has a large, wrap-around electronic news ticker. Red letters scroll silently, endlessly, across a black background. Stock prices, market updates, and then a new headline begins its journey across the screen. Norvale Provision Co., NVPC, announces leadership change. Board appoints interim CEO George Riley. Launches full independent review of executive conduct. I watch the words glide past. It is my entire war, my entire life's work for the past year, condensed into a dozen words of cold, electronic text for investors to consume. It is real. It is done. The machine is now public. I do not need to watch the rest. I do not need to see my father's name or Brielle's. I know the story it tells. I turn my back on the building, on the ticker, on the entire world contained within that single city block. I do not look back. There is nothing there for me to see. The past is now a closed file, hashed and archived. It can no longer be edited. I start walking, with no destination in mind, just away. The wind picks up, blowing a stray piece of newspaper against my leg. I can feel the spot on my cheek where Brielle's hand struck me. The faint, yellowing bruise is a ghost of a memory, a physical echo that is already fading, soon to be gone completely. The body heals. The skin forgets. But the evidence does not. The notarized signatures, the metadata from a forged PDF, the high-definition frames of a security camera video, the unalterable hash code on a 112-page report, those marks are not on my skin. They are in a server vault. They are in a court file. They are in the public record. They are permanent. The physical mark was the catalyst. The legal mark is the consequence. One is fleeting, the other is forever. Black screen. No epilogue. The end. Thank you so much for listening to this story. We'd love to know where in the world you're tuning in from. So please drop a comment below and share your thoughts. It's always amazing to see how far these stories travel. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing to the channel and giving this video a like. And to help us reach even more people, please support us by hitting the hype button. It truly makes a difference and ensures more listeners can find and enjoy our content.